I think that's where people have gotten off track in this fight to end human trafficking. We all think we're just supposed to be doing the same thing, or we all think we're supposed to be doing everything. I go back to a podcast you did with Kevin where you said the weakness of most organizations is them trying to do what they're not good at.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Trafficking Free America Podcast, where I am your host, Oree Freeman. And today we have a familiar face, a very special guest, Jeremy Hicks. Hey Jeremy, how you doing?
How you doing, Oree?
I'm doing really good. It's really great to have you back. I know our audience is very familiar with you and all your expertise in all the various different areas. So thank you for joining us today. I wanted the audience to learn a little bit more about our Trafficking Free Zones. Can you elaborate a little bit about our programming and what you actually help implement and get off the ground?
Sure. First, I want to comment to say that I am not an expert in anti-human trafficking. I've just been involved. And that's honestly what the Trafficking Free Zone is about. It's not about being an expert. It's not about being the person that is like gonna charge everybody and like be the hero of and just start rescuing everyone all around. It's not. What I've learned really from you a lot too, Oree, is it's not about rescuing. It's about caring first, being ready to engage. It's this idea of like, no one wants to go to war, but we need to be ready for it. It's that sort of mentality. And the Trafficking Free Zone was first established by the U.S. Institute, probably, I guess 2017, I think is when it actually officially launched. And just to give a little history about it, it was launched as this idea of like, let's educate neighborhoods, cities, counties, so on and so forth. It was almost kind of like a political movement in a way, like let's go after the big dogs and work our way down sort of situation. And if you remember 2017, before 2020, and where everyone was involved as much online as they are right now, it was more person to person, and so we had a full-time person going after that. And when we looked at the analysis of like what it would be to have a county, be a trafficking free zone, I'll get into what that really means in a moment. It was so expensive. Like it's so expensive to do trainings like that, because you're talking about how do we help everyone in our county know the signs, know what to do if you see something, right? Because what do we see everywhere? If you see something, say something. I was the person who's like, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to see? Like, thank you for the see something, say something bumper sticker, but I'm going to need a little bit more if you actually want me to make an impact. And so the Trafficking Free Zone was this whole education thing of how do we help normal citizens just be aware of what's happening, the truth of what's happening, not just what we see from movies and so on and so forth. And how are you actually supposed to respond legally and effectively? Because I don't know, I've learned this, through my time educating myself with interviews, content, so on and so forth, which is what I do here at the U.S. Institute. Is I help voices be shared so that we can hear exactly what I've learned. I mean, Oree, if I just randomly saw you, and when you were going through everything, I don't think you wanted me to just barge right in, grab your forearm and be like, I got you, baby. And we run away. Right. I think you would have been like, get away from me. My intentions would have been good, but that's not the right way to do it. Right. And so I think that's what, I realized. And so, when we saw how crazy expensive things were, and how like moving, the needle forward, it was hard. And so when I talked with our previous CEO, Kevin Malone, at the time around 2022, it was like, okay, how do we kind of make it more online? How do we make it easier to access? How do we make it to where it's not having to be in person all the time? Not that that's not a great to do, but I mean, if we're spending hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands of dollars to educate 20 people at a time, that's not very effective, right? We would rather see that money be used elsewhere. So I helped create an online system. We have an online education using old resources and new resources, put that all together. And now it's an online system to where a business, a church, a county, anyone really of leadership can say, hey, we want to be established as a trafficking free zone. So I'm just going to use a business as an example because that's the perfect place to really start this. Imagine you're a small business, have 10 employees, right? And you're like, I want this to be known as a trafficking free zone. What I mean by that is I will not tolerate the idea of exploitation. I will not tolerate the idea of control. I will not tolerate the idea of someone coming in here and feeling like they can. Let me back up a little bit. I remember the story you shared when you were 11 years old and you went into a McDonald's at 6:30 a.m. That I want my establishment to be a Blake. If you do that in my establishment, you will be caught because we know the signs, we know everything going on, and we know exactly what to do, and we have a playbook to do it. And that's what. And so if I'm a business owner and I see Trafficking Free Zone to do this, I first go in, I become educated as the leader, as the representative, right? I go through the training myself, and then I pass on the training to all my employees. They don't have to go through so the way it works is I become a trafficking free zone as a representative of my business, and then I just have everyone become go through the Human Trafficking 101 course and become an abolitionist through our training, which is just simply like, hey, it's the same exact education I got. The only difference is that at the end, after I say I'm going to educate all my people, we say, all right, you are a trafficking free zone. Here's some resources like a sticker, something to put on your website to say publicly, we are a trafficking free zone. We've been educated. Now imagine if every single business in your city started to do that, and your county started to do that around the United States. The United States then becomes a trafficking free zone, and that's what the program is about. It's free, all online, easily accessible, and so that's what it is.
And that's not typical. Currently in our current climate with a lot of just different movements within human trafficking to really abolish this. And so that's a really good, not necessarily an incentive, but for people to really want to access it because it's free. We're not charging you thousands and thousands of dollars to get information to help change somebody's life. I do want to tell you a story really quickly because I know our history with, as far as like operations and as far as like all of the production that you've done. And so it's so funny when you said, I wouldn't just rescue somebody or that wouldn't be the right thing to do. And so I'll never forget, I was 16 years old. I take that back. I wasn't 16. I was 14, 15, and I met this woman named Oree Freeman. And she was coming into the group homes to teach juveniles, former foster youth, how to use a camera, how to document their life. And so it started off like that, like a project. Well, I ended up leaving the facility. Back then we called it AWOL, like because you would leave and you would get a bench warrant out for your arrest because you're basically, you left without permission. And I was also on probation and stuff as a kid. Well, when I left, I ended up actually being on the run, literally for probably about like a year and a half up until my 18th birthday. And I called this woman. And I just wanted her to document my life while I was back on the streets. Here is this woman who has never worked with a victim of human trafficking a day in her life. Never worked with someone who has been in gangs, addiction, none of that. But she's always had a heart for people because that's why she's in the documentary business. And it's so crazy when I look back, she was the only person I had for a very long time while I was out there. This producer would, and I'm talking about not filming, drive me around 3:00 in the morning because I have nowhere to go, no shelters, and also because of the legal stuff. Like, I didn't want to go back to a police station. I didn't want to go back and be locked up. I wanted help. And I was still in and out of the streets. And she would feed me. She would clothe me. I mean, I was on the run. And most people, this is so illegal. But people would be like, well, you were on the run. She was supposed to turn you in. But it's those situations where if you come in contact with a youth that is on the street or a young adult, right, that's at that midline, let's just say they're not on the run. Let's just say they're a foster youth and there's nowhere for them to go. She didn't know what she was doing. We had a phone call yesterday and she was like, I had no idea what I was doing. The stuff I was just maybe enabling you. Maybe I wasn't always saying the right things. But one thing I know about that woman is she was coming. Until this day, I know she will come. Until this day, you know, in my late 30s now, like knowing that if I'm having a moment where a crisis, I'm overwhelmed, I can call her. And she's not Joanna Friedman, this producer. She's JoJo to me. She's family to me. You know, she was there when I gave birth to my daughter. Here is this producer, this woman who's just cinematic lady behind a camera who became family, who really helped me in times of dire need. When I tell you nowhere to go, no food, no clothes, we're in Goodwill or certain stores sometimes trying to find clothes. And this woman would get used, of course, because when you're young, you out in the streets. I might have used her for food or I might have used her for money and given it to my pimp. And at the end of the day, that woman still would show up. And I'm not saying it was right what I did, but because of the trauma, because of the lifestyle, but anyone can do this. You can become an abolitionist. You can become someone that gets educated and not have to kind of wing it. You can just get educated and know how to intervene or know how to respond to something when you do see something. And also say, I'm not doing it. Another thing I thought about as you were talking with businesses, it's not just about the signs. It's not just about, you know, making sure that you're taking the legal step, even for people that might be the perpetrator within the organization or within the system or what you might see on your business grounds. We see this a lot in different businesses where I can walk into an establishment, especially a restaurant, and I can see something that is not right. And me as a customer, I'll say something, but majority of the time people are afraid of saying something or don't know what to say. So
I mean, even when you are educated, I think that some people still feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's something that we have to become more educated about and also have awareness on what we can and cannot do. You know, I'm a person that even in business, you know, I can be driving down the street and I literally seen a woman the other day and I knew something was wrong and I knew what services to provide. I knew where to point her to, even though she wasn't ready yet. So it's good, I think, to also have those tools by, you know, participating in our program, being able to have those tools in their toolbox to say, hey, here are some things that I've learned, things that I can help, and even just pointing somebody in the right direction, right? Like if you don't know that there's a shelter or there is a rehab in 2.9-mile radius of your home or in the area, if someone's struggling with that, right? Like if you don't know that there is a emergency shelter or a safe house or even a station that is equipped to take in survivors of human trafficking, we have our like drop-in centers and things like that, then it's much harder to point someone in the right direction for that.
Let me ask you a question real quick, Oree. I while I believe that the Trafficking Free Zone and curriculum and even this podcast gives people some ideal tools, but to you know, of how to carry out the mission of helping a victim, or see something, say something, and knowing the right way to do it, and so on and so forth, or just simply caring for someone as they go through restoration. I think what we teach here is a much more of a mindset, and because the reality is that the tools, there's too many variables when it comes to the tools, right? But what would you say is the practical thing that everyone should kind of know? Because I'm not going to say like, okay, if you live in, I don't know, I'll just think of a random place. If you live in DeLand, Florida, this is the exact a place you can go to. Blah, blah. I can't do that throughout the United States, right? And even if I had a data center where I updated everything, but in a year from now, it's all going to be different, right? So we can't do that here at our facility, but we can say, here's the steps you should take in whatever area you are. So if you were to tell someone like a game plan of what they should have ready at their disposal, of when, if they were to see something that's a little bit suspicious, or even like they approach someone and they're like, yeah, I'm looking for help. What would be like the 3-step program to do, or not the program, but plan to maybe do in your area? And by the way, I know this is a one specific plan. There's many different plans you can kind of do and have, from simply just, okay, here's how you contact the police, to here's how you get them in the shelter. So you mentioned shelter. What would, if you're going that direction of like, here's how I'm going to help you, because I know that you probably do this on a daily basis because you're a freaking all-star at it. You know the plan. So what would be a good plan for someone like that?
Well, we are moving forward. I want to say this. In America, we are moving forward when it comes to a lot of our states are being equipped with the programs that they need. The legislation may not be fully there when it comes to supporting survivors currently, like all over across America. But what I will say is that many people are getting bored. I mean, even all the way up Utah, places that you couldn't even think, like Namaha, like places literally where people are creating centers or somewhere for people to go. But initially, always, I would assess the situation and make sure that it's safe. We never want an individual to put themselves in harm, and not just to be trafficked, but to be hurt. We don't want you to get hurt. We don't want to put yourself in danger, like just putting somebody in your car, because you also could, there's physical violence sometimes and things like that. And I know this only from even just raising 2 foster kids right now, being mindful of some of their external behaviors because of the trauma that they've been through. But the first thing is I would assess the situation, assess that it's safe, see if you see anyone around. The biggest thing I'll say next is, yes, you can call the police. Absolutely call law enforcement. But that's a part of being an advocate, is to say, hey, I have identified this woman or this young man as a trafficking victim. Do you have someone coming out with you, an advocate? Do you have a center you're going to take her to? That's a part of being the advocate and learning about this, because typically our natural response is to call law enforcement and let them take care of it. I have done this more recently where I'm like, hey, I know that there are advocates available to come in response with you because I have identified them as a trafficking victim. Can you do that? Or do I need to call, the hotline in order to make sure that there is the right people that are going to come out and assist? That way, one, she doesn't feel like she's the criminal. He or she feels like the criminal. Or two, that proper measures are handled that they need currently, because there are folks being trained on the professional side to do that. So I know even within the state, we have an emergency response in the state of Texas, just like in the state of California, an emergency response team that will come out with law enforcement in order to then walk the victim through the next steps in the process and sit with them at the station all night, or sit with them until wherever they may go next, or provide them with the resources. We do it for domestic violence. We can do it for human trafficking. So that's a part of, I would say, after assessing the situation, along with calling law enforcement, is being the advocate in that moment for that person. I know sometimes we're quick to leave, like maybe stay there until, hey, officer, I just want to make sure everything's okay. If it's possible, where are you all going to take her to? Where are you going to take him to? Things like that, or are there any programs? Is there anything more I can do? Because sometimes, yes, there's a lot of training for a lot of our first responders, but sometimes we don't have enough resources to respond in a night. So if we can be that advocate in the moment, that's the biggest thing that I've seen, is that I've also watched victims feel safe, feel more comfortable, because you have to think about it. When you first come in contact with somebody, immediately you're going to have a defense. They're going to have a defensive, posture, or, trying to be protective over themselves because of the people that have mishandled them, that have broken their trust, and the individuals in their life currently that are exploiting and selling them. And so I think that's the second thing. The third thing I would say is, maybe if you want to go to that next level of maybe having an extra pair of clothes in your car. Those things that you can give away. I know it sounds crazy, but those things that you might, give away to Goodwill, or you give it away to places, or you take it to your thrift shop, whatever, your resale.
Every 35-year-old man has a donation bin that he's in his garage that he's trying to make sure his wife puts it in that bin and doesn't stay in her trunk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got
We
2
all
bags
have
in my trunk
that.
right now. And
I
so
guarantee you do.
those clothes, those sweats, those t-shirts, a blanket, because I'm telling you, those things
Yeah.
matter. Those are the things that
Yeah.
matter. Even if you're saying, hey, here's some extra clothes in case, you guys don't have it at the station. Here's some extra clothes for you. Do you know how much that makes a difference? Do you know how
Right.
it felt when I stopped a young woman probably a couple weeks ago, and my entire family was in the car too? We were on a date night, actually, our 2 couples, and we seen this woman, and all of our hearts were like, and we're all in the service field though, but we all turned around. It was like 1 a.m. We were leaving a jazz concert, and we literally got all out the car. Of course, the women approached her first. Then my fiance got out and was like, ma'am, can I pray for you? Like, I just want to pray for you. And listen, like, there's more. My fiance can provide you with some services. It just was such a beautiful thing to be able to give her something tangible. I gave her my phone number on my card. I always carry like a business card. So my U.S. Institute cards, I carry those with me. I have my numbers on them so I can give them something tangible. And I'm not afraid of safety. I mean, what is somebody gonna do? Play on my phone? I've had worse in my life. So I give that out, but I was able to give her, we gave her a blanket, we gave her a jacket, and I let her know, hey, right up the street it's literally a shelter up the street that can get you some assistance and get you into a program that would better assist you.
And having that in your back pocket, that information in your back pocket, is super valuable.
Absolutely. So your like all of your trafficking free, if we give you a bumper sticker, if we give you those things are very valuable to have that on hand, or to have it accessible for somebody to be able to get that number, to be able to know what to point back to. Sometimes I have just gave girls and young guys my Instagram because I want them to know who I am. Stay in contact with me there. I know they'll see videos. I know they'll see the podcast. I know that. So I'll give them information to hold that to, or I'll say, if I'm interacting with a victim at the station, it's like, look me up when you get time. Just Google me, because sometimes you don't have a long window to share your story or your testimony. For me as a survivor, right? As a survivor leader.
Yeah.
But I give them something, even if it's not this whole lecture or what you could do with your life, because they use the internet. They use the phone. So I give them those tangible things. So the 3 simple things, right, is making sure you have a basic need, whether that is some sort of clothing or a blanket, something like that. But I would prefer clothing. We do that all the time with our clients when we have to, especially with young kids that are exploited. We have backpacks ready for them because during the time, they're not fully clothed. They're in explicit clothing. Or some of them haven't had clothing in a while, so they're recycling the same things. So a tangible need, something tangible. My former father, mentor, I miss him dearly. Jim shared a meal, but he was older. He didn't have children yet. I mean, he had already raised his children. That Denny's was his best friend. And when he would meet young men and young women that were being exploited or going through these crazy traumatic events, he meet him at Denny's, and he would meet him at that Denny's on that track. And I'm not telling you to do that, but when you talk about a level of service, he's like, hey,
but
meet me
he's
here.
a professional, and knowing a professional, having a resource ready, I would introduce someone to him, right? If I had the opportunity in that way. And then meanwhile, I was like, hey, while you're doing that work, because you're great at it, how can I help you around you, And I think that's where people have gotten off track in this fight to end human trafficking, is that we all think we're supposed to be doing the same thing, or we all think we're supposed to be doing everything. I go back to a podcast you did with Kevin back probably 4 years ago at this point, where you said the weakness of most organizations is them trying to do what they're not good at.
Oh, absolutely.
And like look, the U.S. Institute Against Human Trafficking does not have a safe home. So I need to have an organization that has a safe home ready to work with. You know, the whole thing is like the whole team effort is not what team can we build at U.S. Institute, but what team can the U.S. Institute be a part of? We're all here trying to end human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
We're all here trying to end exploitation. We're all here trying to share that every person is a valuable child of God and should never be controlled by
Mm-hmm.
someone else's power.
Or
There's a
be
greater power over them
or
that
be
loves
or
them so much.
raped, right? Nobody deserves that. And I think
No.
you shared a good point, Jeremy. I think also too I think we're hearing it so much. Remember when child abuse, way back, not way back, literally, but I think it was a time when the child abuse campaign started coming, and they start coming, and now it's a norm.
Yeah.
Now, gratefully, we do have CPS, Child Protective Services across the nation in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
We still have gaps in that we're learning, that we have to continue to evolve. But I also feel like it almost sometimes break my heart to feel like human trafficking is getting watered down. Like now
Sure.
it's this
Yeah.
commonly talked about thing. There was this wave. It was heightened because nobody was talking about it. It was like, this couldn't
Yeah.
happen in my community. It's not happening in my neighborhood. I can't believe this is happening to these kids. I can't believe it's happening. It's been happening so long that I think I wouldn't say, and I'm just saying this from my professional side of being in all different areas. I do trainings across the nation. I'm involved in all different type of businesses and organizations, connections with people, stories of other survivors. And there's a change coming again where we get so fixated on the type of trafficking. And yes, we want to have the awareness, and yes, we want to do something about it. But at the end of the day, the core root is freedom, helping people get free fully, not just out of bondage physically, but out of bondage here, bondage in here, bondage in their relationships, how they show up in their life. And that's one of the things, even through individuals choosing to get more educated on this subject through the Institute, through us. I think it's going to be very important that we remember the basis on why we're doing it. And it doesn't matter what human trafficking category it falls under. We want to see another life free. That's all that matters. We want to see someone be fully free. And I'll tell you, as the executive director, as the director of operations, it is a long, long journey. And we'll talk more about that on a future podcast. But
Yeah.
I'm still currently trying to get more free. And it's not the mechanical stuff. It's not the physical stuff. It's the everyday adulting. When you've been
Sure.
through so much in your life and you think now this is a different type of hard. And so that is our goal, is we don't want people just free from the hands of these traffickers, these exploiters, these evil people. We want them fully free to be able to walk in wholeness.
What I've realized in this fight is that what we mostly focus on is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's like, it was really interesting. I was watching a show last night, and it was a father and son had just visited. I guess the kid's I say kid, the guy's like in his mid-20s, their grandfather. And you could tell the grandfather was kind of like a bad dad to his dad, right? And so this father and son are driving home, and the father says to him, it's a good thing, son, that I only had you on the weekends, because what I was growing up with was a coked out mom, and my dad would come home, get drunk to deal with her, and then take all of his aggression on me. And he said, He said, just understand, son, if you ever raise a child, you're going to father him the same way you were fathered. And it's like a chain that cannot be broken. And it was a sweet moment. His son said, hey, Dad, I think you're a good dad. He's like, oh, I avoided it. And he's like, no, I think you did the best you could. And that touched his heart, right? But what I got from that was like, there is so much generational trauma that just simply cannot be broken. I mean, where do we learn if a father is bad to us, where did we learn that from? And you can say all day long, I'm going to do this. And who is the one that truly breaks the chain? It's Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. And it is something Absolutely. That we do not shy away from in this. But what does Jesus tell us to do? Jesus didn't say like, yeah, so sit back on your couch and just hope.
Yeah.
It's like you have to have the hope. But I believe that Jesus is saying, when I said care for your neighbor, this is the kind of thing I meant. In this, it's like, so kind of full circle back to the trafficking free zone, starting with what should I just be aware of to help my neighbor if it ever happens. Oree, for as long as I've been doing this, I have yet to like see or meet someone in distress. And then I've seen moments of like, oh, are they? And then I'm like, okay, they're not. Like I realize it, right, or something like that. But I have yet to be able to see and respond. It doesn't mean I'm not ready. And technically, I kind of hope I never do, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm not like going like, I hope I see a victim. I hope I see no victims, but it's ready for if it ever happens. And I know exactly how to respond and in the way that you have taught us. And I believe that Jesus has used voices like you to say, I have taken my daughter out from this, and now I want her to be a voice to have more be taken out. And just simply through the love, the care, the going on the offensive to say, I'm a trafficking free zone here, and I want everyone to be a trafficking free zone over there, and I'm going to spread this. And I believe, what do you think, Oree? Is it like almost like a silly belief that that if every business, let's just say every business in Florida, is where I'm at, was a trafficking free zone, do you think traffickers would be a little more afraid to do trafficking here?
I think people will always try because, I mean, even in the Word of God, there will always be evil because of what's in us.
Naturally.
It's a choice. But I think what it does is it builds confidence and it builds community. It builds relationships of what God always intended, the ultimate relationship with Him. And so I think that as we do these trafficking free zones, what happens is it builds a community. It builds support. It builds protection. And so it's one less person that doesn't have to go through hell in order to experience the love of God nor the freedom. And I think that the biggest thing that I was also going to share with you is it's not just about identifying a victim or if you're at that grocery store. Sometimes things are preventative, everyone. I want everybody to know watching. Sometimes it's preventative.
Right.
We just fostered 2 girls who were practically raised in a shelter their entire life. A lot of their emotional outbursts externally, like me getting hit and all kind of stuff, cussed out. A lot of that is, although it's from abandonment, it's from rejection, it's also rooted in very low self-esteem. And so what happens when that young girl becomes 15 years old? What happens when that young girl, my 10-year-old, goes off to middle school next year and she's reading at a first grade level? What happens when all of these things start to play? Is she a human trafficking victim now? No. But guess what? She's at risk. Oh, she's at risk already at 10 years old. My 8-year-old girl is at risk because the need for validation, the need for being to have approval and praise, and especially from a man. She's 8. And when we get educated, let's say we're a parent and we take the trafficking free zone and we start talking about it in schools. On the backside, we also teach people how to protect other people. And we're not just making them aware of what human trafficking, but how do you serve? How are you showing up at your kid's school? How are you showing up in your business by saying, hey, this is an issue. How can we come alongside of some organizations or some people to support them on doing this work if I can't do it directly? So it's not just also looking for a victim or like, oh, let me be aware. Like you said, it's the preventative stuff. Hey, that girl that you might be coming home, that might be coming home with your kid from school, you notice some cuts on her arms. So that means that she's suicide. She's not suicidal, but she's self-harming. So what can you say about that? What can you say to her? Because that's a preventative thing. Yeah. It teaches you how to be aware of the broken people, the unfree people, the bounded, the orphan, the widow all around you. And it's not just sometimes a widow from marriage. Sometimes it's a widow from the man of the household in your life completely, has never had any covering over from a man at all in a healthy way. So how can you prevent those things with the lives around you? You know, the biggest thing I'll tell parents too right now is we're afraid of really diving deep into this and teaching our children how to fight against it. But I'll never forget when I met a young girl who went through a similar program like our Trafficking Free Zone. We met her in the 6th grade, and she wanted to put signs up before this was a law about human trafficking around her school and wanted to educate her students because she had heard my story at like an event. And 6th grade, she took it all the way to Berkeley. Everywhere she went, she literally created a school, like something, an organization on school in order to combat human trafficking, whether that was doing fundraisers and walking alongside organizations, bringing them in to talk to the students, let them know how could we educate other students, not just to look out for ourselves, but to look out for other people. That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's what it's about. So if you are interested in the Trafficking Free Zone, by all means, go to our website. Yes. Easily become an abolitionist. And just so everyone's aware, the Trafficking Free Zone abolitionist program, it's the exact same education. The only difference of like when you're taking the course is the Trafficking Free Zone will guide you to an area where it's like you are now a trafficking free zone, and here's a proclamation that you can sign and say that you are and have a sticker and so on and so forth. Abolitionists is just that part without the sticker, right? And so and it's built that way to make it easy. It's built that way to naturally spread it across for educational purposes and to just get started there. This podcast, there's a reason why we call it Trafficking Free America, is because this is what we believe in. This is what we're talking about. We just kind of go deeper. So if you're wanting to check that out, please go to our website, usiaht.org /trafficking free zone. So that, or you go to the homepage, go to the programs, you see it all. But ultimately, please start there. See how your church, business, group, man, as long as it's at least two or more, right? It's a group. Make it happen. If you're a business who has 10,000 employees, do it. Yeah. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share about today was that program. Thank you for having me on here to discuss that with you.
I appreciate it. And everyone, we will see you at our next episode. Tune in.